Hello. Lê, can you hear us?
Yes.
Great, so welcome.
Hello.
This is part 3 of our daily news rehab, in which we're trying to learn or figure out how to better inform ourselves. And we're very excited to have you, so thank you for joining us. The last 2 nights we had other guests over and we talked about the economic machine behind fake news and misinformation. And last night we talked with somebody who had a more radical approach, avoiding news altogether and focusing on the long-term information on books and other aspects of reading and informing ourselves. And so we're excited to have you here tonight because you are someone with a different approach, maybe a more scientific and mathematical approach to information. And so we hope to go a little bit deeper into the nitty-gritty details and looking especially at what you're creating and what you've dedicated yourself to in terms of helping us assess news and better validate the information process. So it's very nice to have you here. Thank you. And maybe as a starting question, we'd love to very simply ask you about your news reading habits, or not necessarily reading, just news hygiene, what you do every day to inform yourself about the world. So if you could, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess I don't follow the news very closely.
Okay.
In general, like I don't go to a news website or to a news aggregator. Well, I very rarely do actually. I get most of my news from social medias, which, in particular from Twitter, and this, like, for a long time it's been. So I don't know if I can show my screen.
Definitely, yeah.
This is my Twitter, and so as you can see, there's a lot of science and not a lot of directly news, like a little bit here, but yeah, but it's often like whenever something it's that's a news in my Twitter feed, it's usually related either to my well, usually it's very closely related to my topic of interest, which is like the safety of algorithmic recommendations of content on the internet. So I guess this is somewhat related to this. But yeah, you can see most of this is mostly around mathematics or science, or maybe a bit of philosophy.
But as someone who devotes his research, studying a recommender system and algorithm for content recommendation, do you have this habit of trying to understand why something appears on your newsfeed, or how do you unpack that?
And you try to impact it also, no?
Yeah,
like
exactly.
Yeah, so this is really a question that's very important to me, is like, why is it that I'm seeing this tweet, for instance, from Tom Simonite, and usually it's because it has a lot of likes and retweets, and so the Twitter algorithm is going to push it forward. If you don't pay attention to this, it's usually going to be this, and it's also going to be related to the people around you, like the people you already follow, whether they retweeted it or not. And it's important to realize that on these social media platforms, there's a lot of fake activities, especially on Twitter. So I often receive messages from Vietnamese accounts on cryptocurrencies and stuff like this, and these are actually fake accounts. Like they
just received one today.
But wait, how do you detect that? So what are your red flags or your?
So I don't know if I have one.
Or can, yeah, ideally if you can even show us some.
Yeah. So I usually report them right away, so I'm not sure I'm going to be able to find one right here. But like the basic reflex is, well, first of all, if it's talking about cryptocurrency, it's a big of a red flag. And then the other thing I look at is the date of creation.
Okay.
So if the Twitter account was created a few months ago, then it's probably fake.
Okay.
So that's a
so
sign.
It should be older.
Yeah. But sometimes even older accounts. So there's a lot of fights to obtain like old accounts on Twitter, because then it's harder to be detected as a fake account. So even then you have to be suspicious.
Tell us more about this fight. Like, is there a market for Twitter accounts that are?
There's a huge market. So one video I can recommend on the topic is a video by Smarter Everyday called on Twitter manipulation. So if I do this, I get this. So if you want to know more, like I recommend this first video, like the Twitter bot battle.
Okay.
And just to give a few figures, so Twitter, you have to imagine that it's much easier than on Facebook to create an account. But on Facebook already, every year, the Facebook team is removing 6 billion fake accounts from their platforms.
My gosh.
So 6 billion fake accounts, this means that...
one per person.
So like most accounts on Facebook are fake.
Wow.
And so on Twitter,
and on Twitter more.
A lot worse, like because there's much less. Like Facebook is trying to have one person, one account, but Twitter does not have this policy. Like you can create bots on Twitter, and it's part of the Twitter terms of service. So on Twitter, yeah, definitely most accounts are fake. You have to, if you don't know an account and it's poking you. Maybe it's the chances are that this is fake.
Huge probability.
And then, in terms of the ones that you're following, are there particular sources then that you trust more, or you prefer to trust the people who are actually writing the pieces that you're following, or how is your approach there?
Yeah, so definitely both. And I would trust even more like some people than some newspapers, although there are some sources that I really trust. But I think a lot has to do, like you have to trust the sources. And I think more generally from information in general, the authenticity of information, like the sources is really important. So for instance, there's this discussion about deep fakes. So deep fakes are like, they can be videos or images or sounds that are purely fabricated by an algorithm. And they are becoming harder and harder to distinguish from authentic images or sounds or videos. So I think more and more like the way to combat deepfakes and stuff like this will be to go through the authentication of the videos. So has it been published by a major news outlet? Has it been vouched by credible individuals and so on?
And okay. I have a question here. So when evaluating a news outlet, let's say I come to you and I present you a new news channel and I say, check this news channel out, it's very cool. How do you assess it if you never saw it before?
Yeah, so if I've never seen it before, I'm going to have a bad prior. So this is this is a way of thinking that's related to probability theories. Always trying to have a prior on the content, and the prior is based on the overall quality of news outlets or like sources in general on the internet,
and the percentage of the good quality one versus the bad quality ones.
Exactly, and and so the other thing is that it's based on trust of other individuals, and so if there are people that a lot of people that I trust that always tweet the same kinds of sources of, like for instance, I don't know, theatlantic.com or NewYorkTimes.com, stuff like this, that I'm going to gain trust in the quality of these journals. Sometimes it's also my topic of expertise, and so I can directly judge the quality of a piece of news, and this impacts how I think about the journal in general. Because there's often there's this saying that like for some journals you tend to believe in them until they talk about your topic of expertise, and then you realize that it's not that good. It's important to assess the quality of the journals when you, based on the articles, you're on.
And earlier you said reliable individuals. Who falls under that category?
Yeah, so it is very hard to find the trustworthy individuals. there are different signals I pay attention to. So one of them is to be open-minded and nuanced and like sharing what you don't know. So people who often talk about what they don't know and how they change their minds are people that will find more trustworthy.
That's nice. Yeah, we have a whole talk later in the week about not knowing, so that's perfect.
Yeah. Yeah, so
not knowing is underestimated.
Yeah.
Like hugely underestimated.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Good start.
And it's not only about like a good sign; it's also a good habit to share, to propagate. So, like I try to do it myself whenever I change my mind about something, whenever I'm wrong about something. Like trying to share this and also trust more people who do this effort.
Yeah. Good.
To reassess. And I was curious about whether you have any guilty pleasures in terms of news sources.
Yes, my guilty pleasure is sport, but especially football. So I often go to this website.
Yes.
And follow football.
Okay. I see. Okay. So nothing too controversial.
Yeah.
But one thing I would say about this is that even though, so this is a guilty pleasure and it's addictive, so I can spend way too much time, especially on YouTube, watching football videos. So one thing I do is that whenever I want to watch a video about football, so I don't know, a video about Messi, then I go in incognito mode. Search for the video about Messi or whatever, and I watch it then. And the reason why I watch it in incognito is so that it doesn't affect the recommendations I get when I come back to YouTube.
That's very that's a good tip. And then you get also more advertisements. And you're less likely to be stuck. And I was curious, do you measure your screen time or do you have a limit on overall news consumption, but also maybe on football? Yeah, I don't know.
So no, I don't. I sometimes check so YouTube has. If you have an account on YouTube, then you can look at the statistics. So I've sometimes looked at how much time per week I spend watching YouTube.
What is it?
I don't have. Well, I can check right now.
Yeah.
So I think it's on the YouTube app. Okay, so
maybe it's not fair to ask you because you also make videos and but
so I cannot access it. Also, another thing I do on my phone is that I block all of the social medias and addictive applications after 10 p.m.
Oh wow! Good.
Actually, after 9:30 p.m. And right now in Switzerland, it's past
okay,
this time,
never mind then. It's okay, we'll give you a pass on that one.
Okay, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
But it's I think it's about 1 hour per day, a bit less than 1 hour per day in average.
It's reasonable.
And okay, 1 hour per day. I think it's.
Can we ask you a bit about Tournesol? Is that or should we? You want to ask more about
this? Yes, but before asking about Tournesol, because I saw you had opened there a link about vaccines, and actually, we said before, let's find a link that is maybe a bit in the style of fake news, and let's unpack it and let's look at it. And if you can walk us through, okay, you received this link from someone. Random, and how do you decide what are the red flags? Let's go through it.
Yeah, so I took this example because it's a borderline fake news. It's actually not.
That's even better.
It's
perfect.
actually not a fake news as it's written. So a volunteer in AstraZeneca COVID-19 vaccine trial has died in Paris, report says.
In Brazil.
It falls in the category of technically correct, but extremely misleading.
Perfect. This is the subtlety we needed.
Yeah, and so just to explain why. So, well, first of all, it turns out that this volunteer was in the placebo group, so they were in the vaccine trial, but they did not get the vaccine.
Wow. Okay. And you found this out by reading, or?
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
I don't remember if it's this one, but I saw someone tweeting an article like this. So it was like a year ago or something. Okay. And like it was when the vaccine were, like the trials were starting, and someone was tweeting something like this. And in the article, they were saying that the volunteer was very likely in the placebo group. So the article was debunking itself in a sense.
But the problem is that, I mean, many of us, we don't get to read we only read sometimes the headlines, not all the, So.
Yeah, exactly. And I think this goes into something that's like, I don't like talking that much about fake news because I think the problem of misinformation is more subtle than about being fake news. And especially the case with vaccines. So there has been a lot of titles, for instance, like this, like someone died after getting Pfizer vaccine or something like this. Like someone died after, they were fully vaccinated and they died. So these are like maybe true, probably true. But of course, they are not what we should base on. Like there are not sufficient data to judge the reliability of the vaccines.
Yeah.
Yeah, because if you vaccinate 3 billion people, then of course, like some people will die after being vaccinated because out of 3 billion people every year, like roughly 1% of people die. So whether they took the vaccine or not. Car accident or because they are old or for whatever reasons, people will die a year after taking the vaccine or even a few weeks after or even a few days after taking the vaccine. So you should actually expect this kind of news. And that's where it's really tricky because if you are constantly exposed to this kind of news, then you may feel like the number of times you are triggered by the potential danger of COVID vaccines will be large, and you may be misled into thinking that therefore the vaccine is dangerous. And I think a lot of the danger of misinformation has to do with this, about only looking at a tiny portion of a bigger problem. And because of this, because we're only seeing this small portion, and especially with the echo chambers or filter bubbles, you always get exposed to the same kind of issues. So typically, if you're a Republican, maybe you will always be going to be exposed to issues about immigrations or something like this. If you're a Democrat, then maybe you'll always be exposed to content about how QAnon is very dangerous, and some Republicans believe in this. And all of these tiny data are not necessarily representative of all of the bigger picture. And that's why I think like daily news consumption, or especially of titles of newspapers, can be extremely misleading in the end.
And are there specific things that you do to make sure you don't have too much of an echo chamber around you? Or would you recommend others?
Yeah, so this is very hard. I wouldn't say I have a good solution to this. But yeah, overall, what I try to aim for is more like quality information. But it's very hard to determine. But so one thing is to try to be critical of the news that you enjoy. Like the more it makes you feel good, the more you should be suspicious of it. But it's very hard.
That's a good metric. Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay. And so, this is the problem, but you also are part of an association, Tournesol, and you are actually the president of the association that aims to solve this. And it's an open source collaborative platform called Tournesol. Maybe you want to talk more about it?
Yes. So the Tournesol project, it started during the COVID-19, the early phase of the COVID-19 pandemic. So like in April, May 2020. And The issue back then is, well, like misinformation was already a big deal. And there was this urgency of telling people that COVID-19 was extremely dangerous, like more dangerous than the flu typically. And the issue was not necessarily misinformation. Well, there were already issues of misinformation, but arguably the bigger issue was something related, which are sometimes called the mute news. So mute news is a news that is important, that should be much more known, but very few people pay the adequate amount of attention to it. So typically, like,
can you give us an example of mute news?
Yeah, so typically during the early phase of the COVID-19, especially in March, like arguably you were not sufficiently discussing the issue of the COVID-19. The other thing is, well, actually this tweet, which I retweeted a few minutes ago, it shows like how much we are talking about the Facebook files. How much news outlets are talking about the Facebook files, which is like this big revelation made by a very courageous and very methodic whistleblower, Francesca Haugen. So on Monday, like a lot of news outlets talked about this, and then like, it's decaying very, very fast. And like the concern is that even though this is a big deal, like well, at least I think it's a huge deal. Like maybe on Thursday nobody's going to talk about this anymore. So yeah, maybe if you haven't heard about the Facebook files, maybe
I've been dug in the festival.
So actually, maybe some context here, and this would be useful because, and I don't think it's good, but it's what happened in the last week. We've basically been day and night. For this,
it's very ironic to have a conversation about news when we're totally cut off.
we are even a bit out of place, but maybe you can put us back by updating us on these Facebook files, because I heard about it. I saw a headline. Click.
So this is typically the kind of thing I would follow a lot, very closely, because it's related to content recommendation. And so essentially what happened is that Francesca Haugen is an employee of Facebook, and is working in the integrity team of Facebook. So that's supposed to make sure that Facebook is welcoming of quality and so on. And well, her experience at Facebook was really bad. Like she expected it to be hard, but it was so much worse than what she expected. And over the last year, probably during the pandemic, like she really documented everything that was wrong. So she compiled a lot of documents, like emails, internal messagings and stuff like this within the company. And a few, like a month ago, she revealed these documents. So these are like thousands and thousands of pages of mails and these kinds of things, of exchanges between Facebook employees. And what she found out is really bad for Facebook. So it was reported here in the Wall Street Journal. Then she got interviewed in Congress in the US, and like there are so many things to be discussed. Like there's so many stories, but maybe the one that's most concerning for the company is this one. So Facebook employees flag drug cartels and human traffickers. The company's response is weak, documents showed. So essentially, like, so there's especially a podcast that's created, which I highly recommend, that discuss how there was these Facebook groups that were created to do human trafficking, to sort of like promise jobs to some people if they move to some country. I think it was Saudi Arabia or something like this. And once, or like the Emirates, something like this. And when they arrived, like people took their passports, and then there were prostitutions and stuff like this, and some people were underage. So it's like really, really bad. And it was like the Facebook employees told the managers of Facebook and they essentially did not respond or responded very weakly. And the story got so big at some point that Apple knew about this, and Apple like threatened Facebook at some point. They told Facebook that if they didn't take any action about this, then they would remove Facebook from the Apple Store. And it's only then that Facebook started to do something about this.
Okay, so in this big war of like big tech, how does tournesol, which is translated to sunflower, aiming to bring some peace in the content recommendation world?
So we're not going to solve all of the issues.
No, but a little sunlight.
Yeah.
Some seeds, is that maybe?
So tournesol, as Isabella said, it means sunflower. So the idea is to turn people toward the brighter content. And the difficulty to do this, and this is something I was really struck by in the beginning of the COVID, because at some point, like a friend of mine who's working at YouTube, said, maybe I could help, but what video do you think should be recommended about the COVID-19? And at this point, I realized that it's a very hard question. Like if somebody is searching vaccines on YouTube, it's actually very hard to know what should be recommended. And the approach of tournesol is to have a collaborative approach to try to judge the quality of the videos. On the website, anyone can create an account. So if you are not logged in, then you need to create an account. And once you've set up the account, essentially then you're going to be able to provide judgments. So you can go on contribute. And if you contribute, then you have to select 2 videos. So either you click on this and it loads a video, or you can select a video that you have seen and you can copy paste the video ID or like the URL of the video. And then it's going to ask you to compare the 2 videos. So this is like in the basic mode, like you take 2 videos like this, and it just asks you which videos should be more recommended by the algorithm. And so you get to choose, I think this video is of public utility, then should be more recommended, or this video should be more recommended. And then you submit, and this way we can collect data about what a lot of people think a good video is. And if you have more time to spend on tournesol, then you can also provide more information to the website by also discussing different criteria. So which of the 2 videos, for instance, is more reliable and not misleading? Which video is more clear and pedagogical? Which video talks about a more important and actionable topic? Layman friendliness, so which one is more understandable by people who are not experts in the field? Which video is more entertaining and relaxing? Which one is more engaging and thought-provoking? Diverse and inclusive, encourages better habits, and resilient to backfiring risks, or people who are going to be criticized by the video, going to be to take it well, or will they feel even more?
So in a way, you're basically taking back the power to the people. You're giving them some power. But I was wondering, what happens if the 6 billion accounts on Facebook move on to tournesol? How do you ensure you will not have fake accounts populating judgments there?
Yeah, so this is a very good question. It's very important because, like, in the end, once we have all of the judgments of everyone, then we make recommendations with a score that represents the opinion of the community of contributors. And if this community is hacked and is polluted mostly by fake accounts, then they can arbitrarily manipulate these scores, and these scores become meaningless, if not dangerous. So it's very important to tournesol that we authenticate the accounts. So right now we have a solution based on email domain certifications. So that's the best we've come up with. If anyone has a better idea, they're more than welcome to share it. But
right in the chat.
But what it means email, so that it has to be.
So typically, if you have an email attached to an institution like a university or a governmental institution, or even
like
if it's
.edu or something
exactly,
like this. Okay.
Or even if it's like a famous news outlet, or if it's or even if it's a company, if it's a big company. The point is they want to make sure that it's a real account, like owned by a real person, and that this person is not going to be able to create multiple other accounts. So that's why we trust essentially that a university is not going to create millions of fake accounts.
Yeah. Okay. So people like me with a Gmail, I'm not very helpful to Tournesol.
So right now, it means that your data will not be used to compute these scores.
Okay.
But the data is still going to be in the database, and the database, so it's not currently public, but it will be made public because it's still under development. But and this data, we hope to, it's public, so we hope to stimulate research in analyzing this database, in figuring out how to leverage data from people who are not certified. And typically one thing that we plan to do, again, we need more development and more time for the developers to program this, but we hope that soon we'll be able to have a vouching mechanism. So if you believe that Isabella is a real person, then you can vouch for her account on Tournesol, and Isabella maybe can vouch for your account on Tournesol. And these are data that we hope to use to at least partially certify, authenticate some accounts.
We just have a few minutes left, in theory.
Okay.
Well, I have more questions, but if we have any questions in the chat, that's also...
We don't? Okay. Well, if you want to, this is your last chance, so go ahead.
Yeah. So,
but go, yeah.
But yeah, I was wondering, why did you choose to have always two videos to compare instead of showing just one video and assessing it by itself? I'm curious about this decision.
Yeah, so it's about the quality of the data. So we believe, based on some research in psychology and other things, that it's more reliable if you ask people to compare two videos, because typically one video, if you really enjoy it, then you're going to say you really enjoyed it, and maybe you're not going to be able to notice the flaws in the videos, and it's like you can better understand, like I believe we have more reliable data essentially by asking people to compare videos rather than do it independently.
Okay, that's a good point. And also, okay, so what is the grand vision of Tournesol? What do you hope Tournesol to achieve in, let's say, 5 years?
Yeah, so hopefully a lot of things. So of course we're taking videos, but like it could be any pairs of items. So it can be books, it can be podcasts, it can be presidential candidates that you compare through Tournesol. And the goal eventually is to really be able to assess the quality of anything that's recommended. So you could then audit, for instance, what's recommended by the YouTube algorithm, by the Facebook algorithm, and so on. And you can also leverage all of these data to make more ethical recommender systems. So like the hope within in 5 years is that we're going to have a community of contributors that's large enough so that our score are actually reliable and robust. And that's something like Google or YouTube will be willing to leverage this data to make their algorithms more ethical. And in the very long run, we hope also to completely decentralize Tournesol and to review Tournesol as a governance system, as a way to govern collaboratively the way information is spread on the internet. That's really the long-term goal, and to make information much saner and of greater quality on the internet.
That is a great pitch. Join Tournesol to improve and make information more hygienic.
Yeah, and a perfect place to end, actually. Thank you. And the website is Tournesol.
That app.
Okay, super. Okay. Thank you so much, Lê.
It was a pleasure. Thank you very, very much. And we're looking forward to seeing how Tournesol will unfold.
And
Yeah.
hopefully we see you online the rest of the festival to talk
Yeah.
more.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for the discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Salut.